Welcome everyone to a game of Magnus Carlsen. A lot of you mentioned that you would like to see more games of Magnus from Hong Kong, and this one, look at him, he's in good mood, good spirits. He's taking on Gao Rui. He is a grandmaster rated 2475 and he's representing the Fearless Knights of Hong Kong China Chess School. And well, in such games you get to see the difference between Magnus and another grandmaster. We'll see how this pans out. It's always possible that someone can beat Magnus, but if they do not, we are able to learn a lot from those games. You can see Wesley so in good spirits before the game. The players are ready. A handshake, 3 minutes plus 2 seconds increment, pawn to e4 by Magnus, and we have the Sicilian by Gao Rui. h3 played by Magnus, and pawn to d6. Bishop comes to b5 with a check, and h3 is a very weird move by Magnus. He's essentially saying that he would like to play the English opening with h6 as white. d3 played by Magnus. He gives up the bishop for the knight, plays his pawn to d3 and e5. Magnus has great positional understanding, so he feels that he can outplay his lower rated opponents by even making moves like bishop takes c6, which is a clear concession. In the opening Magnus played h3, went here, took this. I mean, it's playable for sure, but cannot fight for an edge with white with that. Okay, black can go real active now with f5, and he does it. Well played, Gao Rui. He's going to force Magnus to bring out his best chess. The thing is, when you have two bishops, you want to open up the position. And if Magnus had gotten knight g3, there would have been a clamp on the f5 square. With f5 now, bishop takes f5, looks logical. And Gao Rui thinking a bit. He's ahead on the clock as well, which is great news. Bishop f5 taken, and Magnus plays knight g3. Okay, put your bishop on g6. Although I must say bishop e6 looks quite inviting, but knight h5 would then really put pressure on the g7 pawn. So bg6 played, and Gao Rui making sure that Magnus has to fight for the full point here. f4 played, and now you must take the pawn. You must take the pawn here on f4. He takes, bishop takes f4, and I think castles makes the most sense. Black has come out of the opening with a superior position, but can you maintain that against Magnus is the question. Okay, rook e8 seems like a good idea. Queen d7 is also great. Rook a e1, Magnus brings the rook in, and he brings the other rook in. Magnus quickly tries to trade the queens. Now, trading the queens is fine. In fact, there's no real issue that Gao Rui should have in that position. The thing is, look at this. Take. The d6 pawn is under pressure. That's the problem. But there are always very interesting ways to solve this issue. And one of the moves that can happen, by the way, Gao Rui is not even taking the queen. He's thinking if king h8 is better than taking, because king h8 takes also seems to be a playable way of continuing. So, but he's taken a lot of time. He's taken more than 50 seconds for this move, and that could come to haunt him later. He takes, rook takes, and now plays d5. This is not the best move as the c6 pawn is hanging. A very tricky defense was bishop d8. So if you play rook takes, I have the move c4, which is incredible. Takes, and now check, king h2, and then knight h5 looking here. It's too difficult for a human to even calculate these things, which is the reason why he played d5, which is a very logical move. He's asking Magnus if you want to take the c6 pawn. But Magnus does not. He plays rook e1 because the point was if you took here, Gao Rui wanted to play c4, opening up this bishop. Excellent play, I must say, by black. Very, very practical play. Okay, rook e1. Now, king f7 is possible, but rook takes c6 happens then when white has improved their position. The other option is to play pawn to d4. He goes bishop d8, but misses bishop d6, and Magnus instantly plays it. Suddenly, the rook is in an uncomfortable position. Also, the c5 pawn is hanging. It's a pawn lost there. Takes, and now rook e8 played. Magnus chops off the rook. Knight takes, he takes the bishop with the bishop. Bishop takes c5, and now white is a pawn up, attacking the pawn on a7. So Magnus somehow managed to outwit his opponent there in that position. Knight to f5 played now, threatening a check to win this pawn. Bishop d7, he's attacking the knight. The knight comes back. Look at the dark square concentration. King f7, knight a4, and the speed at which Magnus is playing is insane. He has 1 minute 54 seconds. Gao Rui has just 19 seconds. Knight comes to h5. He maybe wants to come to g3 or f4. These are the squares that he's looking at. King f2, bishop f6, and the best move now is knight to f3. You can bank on Magnus to find these best moves in endgames. Knight f4 brings the bishop, offering to trade. White is a pawn up, so trading should be good for them. a5, and knight to c5, attacking the bishop on d7. The bishop drops back to e8. Now just chop off the bishop. King takes, and knight to d4. He plays pawn to a4, fixing this weakness on a5. Knight e6, and knight takes e6. King takes e6. Knight d4 check is what maybe Magnus can go for, getting the knight to b3 and attacking here. I think pushing pawn on a4 wasn't really necessary. Magnus has calculated a bit. Gao Rui already down to 5 seconds on the clock. Knight d4 check. King e5, and he comes back. c5 played, attacking the pawn, and he was going to go king d6, but he goes king d4 check. King has to come back, and now I chop off the pawn on a5. He takes on a5, bishop takes a4, and c3. We have d4, knight comes with a check, king e6, and pawn takes pawn. King comes up, and now h4 played. Magnus is 3 pawns up. It's a bit too much of a material deficit here. Bishop d1, g5 played, and now the knight jumps in. King goes back to d6, and knight g4, knight f6 could be an idea. He goes knight c4, knight d2 is maneuvering the knight. b4, the b pawn starts to move. The knight is jumping now to f6. Check, and the bishop is traded. Magnus wins a very interesting game, and maybe it all boiled down to that key moment where Gao Rui thought for a long time. Let's go back to that moment and see if he could have improved his play and found something that could have put Magnus under more pressure. So this is the moment where black thought a lot. They had 2 minutes 7 seconds, and when they made the next move, they were down to 1 minute 11 seconds. So in a 3-minute game, to think for nearly a minute is a lot. But I really liked the solution which was offered here, which was bishop d8. I mean, d5 was also a very cool idea with the same concept of c4 to open up the bishop, but bishop d8. And now one can understand that if takes, black has managed to solve their problems. But I guess the move that would have mattered the most is rook takes d6. And here, how easy or difficult it is to understand this move c4, because c6 is hanging, but essentially you are activating all your pieces. Okay, take here makes sense. I give a check, and let's say king h2 is what we were trying to analyze. And now you can see there's pressure here. The rook is active, so knight h5. And the question is, if you take knight h5, bishop h5, what's your compensation? Well, it's these two bishops, but are they worth 2 pawns? That's a good question, yeah. Suddenly this pin becomes very nasty. I mean, the rook can't come up, can't come here. If it moves away, the bishop hangs. Unfortunately, this is a difficult position to play for white. So Gao Rui couldn't find this idea, and maybe he went d5, rook e1. And here, instead of, king f7 didn't look great because of rook c6, but d4 would have been a very interesting solution. I mean, you're just spoiling your entire structure. You're also giving up the bishop here, take. But after takes here, knight d5 would win material. So that was one tactic which could have been considered, d4. And if rook e7, instead of that, if you move the knight away, knight d5, already black is standing better. So take, and bishop e5, and white keeps a small edge. But as we know, like positions like this with c4 can give black good counterplay. As things happened in the game, bishop d8 was played, and after bishop d6, you simply lost a pawn on c5, and that was enough for Magnus to win the game.
Freedom begins with a choice. In 2008, we made ours. Freedom knows no borders. Step by step, we became part of the global financial system. In 2019, we went public on NASDAQ. In 2024, we built a digital ecosystem. Fintech, lifestyle, telecom, everything comes together in one unified digital space. Today, freedom is a system that shapes markets. $2 billion in annual revenue, $9.3 billion market capitalization, 11 million customers, 11,300 plus employees, 230 offices worldwide. Freedom begins with a choice, and every day we make it again. Freedom Holding Corp. One ecosystem, many possibilities.